How did the Latino Leadership Institute come about? What was the conception like?
So 9 years ago, we had a vision for the future where Latinos would be serving in elevated roles across every sector and industry. But the data informed us at that time that despite our massive demographic growth, despite our massive economic contributions, and despite the fact that we were part of a new workforce replacement, that Latinos actually were invisible in almost every leadership role across every sector and every industry in the United States. In fact, 9 years ago, what we discovered is that many Latino professionals are actually worse off today, statistically, in their evolution to senior level positions than we were back in the 1990s when we were just a small fraction of the workforce. So 9 years ago, we decided that we were at an inflection point and we had to do something different. And so we began the Latino Leadership Institute to identify, prepare, elevate Latino leaders across every sector and industry so that we could change the outcomes, change those trends, and really unlock the full potential of Latino professionals across the country.
I was reading a bit about Ignite, and I noticed mostly the skills, that you talk about developing, they can be considered soft skills, right? So how important are they in your experience when compared to hard ones?
Well, it's interesting because I think we've made a pivot in our research and analysis, and companies today will tell you that if they hire for potential, they hire for dedication, effort, will, tenacity, and some of these things that we call soft skills like emotional intelligence and confidence, that they're actually going to not only retain those employees, but they're actually going to see greater success out of those employees than if they just hired for technical skills or academic achievements. So I actually think that these skills are essential for anyone to succeed. I think they're incredibly important for Latino professionals because a lot of time we are not given the benefit or the opportunity to sharpen our soft skills because we are so focused on being technically flawless in our job that we don't get to invest in ourselves necessarily. So this investment in ourselves and these core skills, I call them core skills, not soft skills, are essential for our success. And it's why we blend those skills with some of our neuro leadership components like productivity and agility, decision-making. I mean, we're not just developing Latino leaders, we're developing the leaders of the 21st century who happen to be Latino, and at the core of their success are these skills.
Well, and have you changed your programs since the start of LLI based on different needs that you have perceived?
So a couple of things, and COVID changed us forever, probably for good and probably a little bit for worse. But we had already started working on a strategic plan to figure out how could we open access to our content, curriculum, and social network to more Latinos because the need is so great. So in 2018, we started the process to turn our program, which was originally delivered only in person and only in Colorado, to delivering it virtually so that anyone, anywhere who is interested in wanting this type of leadership development could access it. So in 2020, we repackaged, redeveloped, relaunched our leadership development program to be delivered virtually. So that's one change. The second change is that we are growing a pipeline of Latino experts and facilitators that are trained in our content, trained in our methodologies, trained in our curriculum, so that, again, we are prepared for scaling this program as the need continues. And the final component of it is we've got to continue to evolve and change and meet our Latino professionals where they are. And what I mean by that is when we started 9-10 years ago, we were dealing mostly with Gen Xers and their experience in the workplace, their values were a lot different than our millennials and definitely our Gen Zers coming into the workforce. And we started noticing about 5 years, some major shifts in thinking and approaches and career navigation. So the LLI is constantly looking at that, constantly exploring and updating our materials, because as we begin to support more and more of the younger generation coming into the workplace, we've got to relate to their experience, not the experience that necessarily we had when we started and navigated our careers.
Can you elaborate a bit on that, on the different experiences that you see when it comes to the different generations of Latinos that you work with?
Yes. I love this question about the difference in experiences and generations. And, I think of it, I'm a mom of Gen Zers, and it's easy for me to see how they see the world differently. I would say, our Latinos that are in that millennial or Gen Zer population, they grew up post 9/11. They have, survived and lived through COVID and incidents like George Floyd and, very volatile election cycles. And what that's created, and they have the internet and social media and 24-hour news cycles, and their world and their framework is just different. And what we see coming out of that from a professional lens is we see an impatience, an intolerance for a lack of real DE&I. They want to show up as their true self. They don't want to have to, hide or repress any of who they are. And they're sort of part of this, what I call the 200% club. They're 100% American unapologetically, and they're 100% Latino. And they don't bargain with that. And that's a lot different than a lot of the experiences that the boomers and the Gen Xers had when they were really facing a lot of kind of assimilation practices. I don't think we came in with an intolerance and an impatience for things. I think we had a lot of patience, maybe too much at times, for change. And so you're just seeing that differently. And I think that that's why companies are going to have to evolve too, because the younger generation is not okay with leaving their cultural identities at home to get ahead at work, whereas maybe the older generation did.
Mm-hmm. Is it an issue that maybe they tell you they encountered, talking about not the people you work with, but the rest of the professional world, to say it in a way? And what are some, of the main maybe misconceptions that you see people encounter with in the professional world, and how do you seek to address them?
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm hearing the question correctly. So how do others see Latinos, and what are some of those misconceptions that they may have about Latinos? Yeah. So this is a really interesting one. I was just on a call yesterday with a dear friend and researcher and just a national treasure, to be honest. And we were talking about this very issue of the Latino narrative. One that we didn't write, that we definitely don't own. And what we're talking about is like, what do people think of Latinos? And unfortunately, over the last few years, that message has gotten worse and worse for many Latinos. For a long time, they've seen us as takers and not contributors. And all you have to do is look at the Latino GDP report, where we are responsible for $3.2 trillion in GDP annually, and we would be the 5th largest GDP in the world if we were an independent country. But yet there's a narrative out there that we're not contributors. There's a narrative out there that we don't like to work, but yet Latinos have the largest share of workforce participation of any group in America today. There's a misconception out there that we want to assimilate, that we're okay with assimilation, and that is a huge misconception. But there's also misconceptions that we're a monolith, and that all Latinos have the same experience. We don't even speak the same language. We're not from the same countries. We have different value sets. We believe in different religions. We have so many intersectionalities. And so the biggest mistake of all is treating Latinos like a monolith, that it's all Latinos. That is one of those nails on a chalkboard for me, because we are such a diverse community, and we represent so many things. And so we really want to honor that difference within the community.
Mm-hmm. And how do you yourself, apply these lessons that you seek to transmit, that convey, in your own, personal, professional, for example, at the Hispanic Advisory Council at the Coca-Cola?
So I'm a work in progress, like so many of the Latino professionals that we work with. I suffer just like everyone else from sometimes a lack of confidence, and I've never seen people who look like me doing what I do, and in the spaces that I've been, we're so few and far between that it's really hard to ever know if I'm doing it right and if I'm doing it well. And so I have to really work on my confidence. And one of the tricks that I always talk to folks about that I'm working with is I had to learn how to take compliments and not just, kind of shove them off and say, oh, I mean, I would almost get awkward when someone would give me a compliment. But I have to embrace that confidence. One of the value sets that I, like many Latinos, learned is the value of humility and gratitude, which are core in a lot of ways. But at times in the professional world, that could come across as I'm not ambitious or I'm not confident. And so I have to build up some of these other important factors while not giving away the things that mattered. And the other thing is I'm a Latina and I'm a mom. And I, like many Latinas, have made decisions about my career based on what it would mean to my family. And there's a statistic out there that 40% of Latinas will make a career decision based solely on their family obligations. So I've turned down promotions. I've turned down big opportunities because it would mean too much time away from my family. So if companies want more Latinas in leadership positions, they're going to have to get more in tune with some compromises that have to take place, because we're not going to be willing to just walk away from our family. And then the final piece of the puzzle in my career and the advice that I take is I know my value now and I don't accept anything less. Latinos are constantly tapped for things and often asked to volunteer our expertise or our time, and we're not compensated for that. And so I know my value and I don't accept anything less. And I think that's an important lesson.
Going back to the compromise from companies that you were talking about, do you see it happening or moving in that direction? What's your view on that?
Companies have a long way to go before they are truly understanding. Number one, they have to expand their understanding of the Latino experience before they start creating solutions to address it. And quite frankly, there are so few Latinos that are leading the strategy within companies around DE&I and human resources. In fact, 76% of all human resource officers are still white. So we are not in these positions to make decisions and build strategies and align business investments to create change. We're still invisible in those spaces. So most companies don't even know what the issues are, let alone have the solutions to address them.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And I just have one final question about LEAP. And it's some maybe common virtues that you have encountered in companies applying, and also shortcomings.
LEAP is a special program that's designed for Latino growth stage businesses. And I call that out because many programs out there, and especially addressing Latinos, are just looking at startup companies. Mm-hmm. But most Latino businesses never make it past sole proprietorship, meaning that they're rarely making it into the $1 million, annual revenue club, and they're not having employees. And that's a major challenge for those businesses, for our community, and for the economy. So the businesses that we're supporting are businesses that have been around, 3 years and really are positioned for growth. They have a product market fit, and they are ambitious and committed to growing and scaling their business. And these used to be called unicorn businesses. I don't see it as such. I just see it as underinvested in businesses that when given the technical, social, and financial capital, have the opportunity to grow. And so I would say those are the things that we definitely see coming out of our entrepreneurs, that they're really in line to grow and scale their business and put in the work to do so.
Thank you. Finally, anything that I didn't ask you that you think I should have?
No, I loved this interview. I wish they were all like that.
Well, I will take the compliment based on what I learned because I know my potential.
Yes, and you know your value, and you're not going to accept anything less.
There we go.